Welcome to Frost. I'm James, Head of Horticulture. Today we're going to talk about creating a new garden. We're going to talk about inspiration, ideas of how to create your new garden. For example, you want to look at magazines to get ideas, colours, features. You want your borders, different levels. But look at the house, of the architecture of it, the style, the colour, and it'd be worth visiting different types of gardens just to give you some inspiration and ideas on how to create your new garden. Now we're going to start talking about planning. So it's really important that you take your time, look at the design, the layout of the garden, how you want to have the journey of you walking through the garden. Look at where you want the patio, look at where the sun is shining, where it's the most hottest, sunniest part of the garden. Look at the areas where it's going to be shady. All these things are really important because it's important that you have that journey all the way through from the beginning to the end of the garden and just have lots of ideas, write them down, really important, even draw a plan, a rough plan. Then I can start showing you now, your sunny plants to your shady plants. Now for the fun part, choosing your plants for the right location. We've got some examples here. So we've got a sunny border here and a shady border. Just going to go through what they are, how to start layering, etc. So just go through that. So we've got a Ceanothus here. These get really high, really big, evergreen, lots of blue flower. You can have these towards the back or in the middle as a showpiece. You've got the Phytinia Red Robin, again, which grows fast. Evergreen, changes colour from green to red. This can create a nice thick hedge along the back. And then what you want to do is start putting some perennials in to match in with the evergreens. So you've got lots of colour. So you've got the really lovely salvia with the delphinium. You can see the colours really go nicely. And then with the caryopteris, with the yellow. So these colours, we're starting to theme it now. And then the Alstroemeria, again, we've got the bit of yellow just to hit the caryopteris, and again, it just goes with those colours there. You've got the mini allium, again, we've got the colour theme. So where we're going with this, we're just layering it. And also, before you start planting a bed, you want to put the pots out first before you plant, because you might want to move them around or change something. There's no rule, and you can plant in 3s, 5s, 7s, but certain things you don't need to, like your evergreens and certain larger salvias, but maybe some smaller plants you might want to plant in clump forms. And then, like I said, this is more sunny. Just remember with the salvias, delphiniums, and like all perennials, they die off and then they come back again. Just think about month by month, because you want to make sure that you haven't got any blank areas in the garden. Because obviously things like your herbaceous, perennials, they will die off, but remember they will come back the following season. But leave gaps. So just remember about picking plants for the autumn, winter. Now we're going to look at the shade borders. Again, I've got some examples to show you, which I'm going to go through. So we've got some evergreens here. We've got two types of Euonymus, bush forming, and we've got a standard type, which will give you a bit more structure. Again, a bit of difference in the garden. You can put these in the sunny borders as well. Again, remember, layer the garden, start big at the back, work your way forward. So then middle, then front. But like I said, there's no harm in having structural pieces as as sort of a main display area. Then we've got foxgloves, sedums, which are fantastic. These are like bulletproof. They grow anywhere. So again, they can go in both borders. This is more the low forming, flowers in the autumn, winter. Hostas, which go really nicely with the sedum and the foxgloves. Then we've got the mitosis forget-me-nots, lovely colour, especially with the sort of the pinky purple and the lovely blue. We've got some awesome ferns, again, which really, really reliable. Then we've got hydrangeas, which go really nicely. This one's just sort of like a pink colour. But again, we just, remember, theme the colour. You know, think of colours you like, look at the design of the building, of the house, and just go with a theme. Next stage is to look at is the pH testing. So it's really important that you look at the soil for the right plant, right location, just to get it right so they're happy in the ground. Look at it like acid loving plants, so you know you put them in the right soil so they thrive better. Things like azaleas, rhododendrons, acers. Clay is a very big common problem. To help try and reduce or break down clay, I recommend using sharp sand. Less is more. It just helps break it down. Really have to dig it in. You want to try and, you know, dig down about a foot, turn it over, add sharp sand, add new compost, and eventually it will slowly disappear, but it will take time and you've got to keep going with it. Now we're going to look at trees. You know, recommend certain types for certain gardens. Small trees, you know, there's various ones. You can look at types of patio, prunus, flowering cherry, Salix, Kilmarnock. We have the nice catkins in the autumn, winter. Even acers you can look at, and these are a nice structural piece where it will draw the eye to the bed. It will also bring a bit of character, and you can also, with weeping trees, you can do underplanting as well. Larger trees, again, you know, you've got some large acers, some amazing sorbus, you've got some betulas, eucalyptus with the really lovely silvery foliage. Just remember though, when you are putting larger trees in, you want to give it space. You don't want to put it near any houses or, you know, near walls, fencing. Just give it that, you know, freedom of space for it to grow. And do the same when you're layering your plants, just so everything can grow nice and neat and comfortable, so not everything's on top of each other, and you just get that nice tier effect. And also as well, when you keep adding plants through the seasons, eventually you'll want to create where you haven't got much soil, and then that will reduce the weed problem as well, which again is more green gardening. Trees for a small garden, recommend like a Salix Kilmarnock, has a really nice catkin in the winter. We've got patio prunus, that's worth looking at, especially the weeping, gives you a bit of character. Small acers, and then looking at sort of medium gardens, I sort of recommend eucalyptus, gunnii, sorbus, and then for larger there are then different types of sorbus, rowan trees and maples, betulas. Again, with the betula you get the amazing silver bark. Next we're going to look at drought resistant plants, really important, you know, especially for those gardeners who want a more low maintenance. Anything silver foliage is good for drought, so things like your lavender, convolvulus, statius. Now we're going to look at tough plants, fast growing. You know, your Photinia red robin, really fast growing. It's one of the fastest growers. Ceanothus is fast as well. And then, you know, more of your tough plants are things like your Euronymous, even your Photinia red robin, Ceanothus. Different types of choice here. You know, you've got your Tonata. This one is Goldfingers, there's Sundance. You know, these are really reliable, tough plants. Now we're going to look at privacy. Again, that's really important to look at. Look at your surrounding areas if you're being overlooked. So remember, you want to look at trellis, climbers, larger trees again, which are more espaliers, which they grow on a frame. While you're planning the garden for privacy, you want to, you know, plan where you're going to place the patio. So again, you've got that little bit of privacy when you're sitting, you know, having a cup of coffee or tea, enjoying the environment of your garden. If you've got a small garden or, you know, a patio area, to try and make it feel bigger, I advise put a mirror in, an outdoor mirror. That'll make it bigger and feel much more open. And also, you know, you can use various containers as well. we recommend planting in sort of late spring once the major frosts are finished. It's also always worth preparing the ground as well with new soil. If you've got a young garden, I would use root grow for when you're planting. Make sure the root ball touches it, and what it does, it accelerates the roots and takes to the soil quicker. If you've got a more established older garden, I would use bone meal. Does the same thing. If you need to move any plants and it's urgent, if it's earlier in the year, try and dig up as much of the root ball as you can and really give it a lot of water. But moving plants, once they finish flowering, you can do that in sort of September, October. Best time for feeding the soil, which also help feed the soil and the plants, I suggest do it in sort of March time, spring. Use farm manure, dig it in well, and then I would do it again in the autumn around September, October, and then that just puts it to bed for the winter. So next we're going to talk about lawn care, how to look after your lawn, treat it and feed it. So in the spring you can start either seeding it if it needs to. Obviously you want to wait till it warms up and it gets in double figures of the temperature so it can germinate. Once you start feeding, it's really important that you keep it wet, so keep on top of watering. Once the lawn starts getting a couple of inches tall, then you can do your first cut on a high setting on the lawnmower. And then once the late spring comes in, you can start feeding. You don't want to overfeed. You want to start feeding every 3 to 4 weeks, or otherwise it will go yellow. You don't want to feed when it's really hot because it can scorch the lawn. Feeding in the summer, autumn, again, just be careful with the heat because it really takes all the moisture and the goodness out of the lawn. If you're seeding, again, I would put like a coating of topsoil over the top. It will help the seeds won't get fried in the sun. It will help prevent the birds from eating the seed. And then in the autumn, it'll be worth aerating it. If you have any lumps and bumps, you can use lawn dressing and it'll raise the lawn. If you need to re-turf, again, you can do it in the spring once the temperature comes up, and I would recommend in the autumn once it's cooler as well. Really key to keep it wet, don't let it dry out. Hope you found the video informative. I know there's a lot of information there for you with hints and tips, but please feel free to come down to the store. One of our experts will advise you in more detail. Many thanks.